Adopt those, we'll entertain it.
Hold on myself again. Hold on one second.
Two weeks. You sure you don't want me to vote?
I don't want you to vote, I want to borrow your agenda if you got it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. Item number 1 of new business, approval of disbursement from District 1 improvement funds.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Wilson.
Mr. Chair, I would like to use 1,000 of my district funds to assist two entities divided into $500 apiece for a reading initiative. One would be the Elizabeth Project Care with their literacy program, and Concept 5 to aid in materials as they pass out for literacy. These are two nonprofits within our community.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Can I ask a question,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Absolutely.
The new designation that's on there, OCA is on there, Office of City Attorney, that means OCA, right? Does that mean, are y'all,
Yes, sir.
I know, because I know we've had some questions about this, are we going through it? Someone's gonna raise their hand if something's not legal, or we're not supposed to do this, or what?
If I can briefly, and then I'll ask Mr. Holmes. You received an email from me last week that outlined that we're gonna move forward with the council's request on district improvement funds in the same manner by which myself and the team has to go through. And that is really to give us 5 to 7 business days before appearing on a committee agenda, unless there's some emergency circumstance surrounding it. That then gives time for OCA to review it, make certain it meets the public purpose doctrine, to get the resolution drafted, to get the appropriate sign-offs to any departments that may be touched by it. Mr. Holmes, you'll then ask.
Yes, sir.
So not only is that fine, it's helpful. Is this, if it appears on here, has it been through that?
So the kind of a two-part answer. The OCA is your
Yes and no?
Well, we just began.
I saw the
This-
email.
This time.
Well, I don't think this time. I think your next round.
The next round.
The next round. Now, the council, if you say, I don't care, I don't want it to go through that process, you have the right.
We understand that. Again, not only is it fine, I think it's helpful.
Yes.
Have what's on here today been scrubbed through legal?
Those have come through our office. I will say and answer first to Mr. Crow's question. The OCA you see on your agenda is actually something we changed agenda-wide a couple months ago. Y'all meet so quickly and we have stuff that comes through so fast, it's sometimes hard when we're putting together the agenda items to match up everything off committee for the next week's agenda. So we started labeling those to help my staff and the clerk's office staff match those up. So everything that comes to my office, we have a file that gets opened on and things like that. We look at from a legal side when these come across, and have always looked at from a legal side when they come across, whether or not we can legally fund what we're funding. Typically, these started as sort of small public projects, and they've sort of become a lot more additional sort of one-shot agency fundings. It's an easy answer for us when you see something like Focus 50 Plus. We legally can fund Focus 50 Plus, and so if we see that designation is to an agency we can legally fund, that's easy for OCA. We're in the process of trying to get a form for y'all to be able to better say, here's what I want to give, who I want to give it to, and why I want to give it to that entity, and why I think it makes a public purpose for us to then vet more fully without having to do an interview or an interrogation process with you.
So the two that are in front of us today.
The two that are in front of us today came through my office a couple of weeks ago when the request first came, and they were vetted as eligible entities for the funding.
Okay.
And sorry to interrupt, but one thing I wanted the entire committee to be aware of is that we're gonna now do what you see on the screen is a breakdown of, every single district fund that we have, broken out by districts. You'll see their funding, capacity and then the spending that they've had within the fiscal year, and what their remaining balance is. And so hopefully this will allow the committee a little bit more of a deeper understanding about what has been spent in the past, in relation to what is being requested during the current agenda item.
And I really appreciate it. I think that's helpful to be able to just right there in front of you.
Yes, sir, we have all of them and we'll keep
As
them
they
all up
come
to
up
date.
for a request.
As they come up for a request, we'll do this exact same
Can you
thing.
email me mine where I can see
Absolutely, yes, sir.
what I've done? That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion.
I have a question though. So is that Matthew's remaining balance? So this is individual, correct?
Yes, ma'am, this is only by council, this is only by the district improvement fund itself.
Okay, okay, gotcha. I like it.
We're getting to yours, Ms. Howard.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Ms.
there's a
Howard, yours will
motion,
come
I
up
will-
literally on the next slide.
Motion.
Item number one, there's a motion. I will second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, item is approved. Item number two, approval of disbursement from District 2 improvement funds. Ms. Howard.
Yes, so this is a request for, let me look at it. And I have a donation letter from this, from the person that's requesting it, if you all want a copy. But this is for your next real step. And so Mr. Scholes, he does a summer camp for our kids and he was asking for a donation. And so I would like to donate for this purpose $2,500 from my district improvement funds.
Okay, do we have any kind of, so I would love to approve $2,500 for a kid's summer camp, all right? Who's doing the camp? That's what I
It
don't
is called
understand.
Your Real Next Step and Kevin Scholes.
And is that an entity that we're familiar?
Schob, I'm sorry.
Show. Is it at McDonald Hughes or some place in the city?
Yeah,
Is it in
I'm not sure where he hosts the camp, but I've heard a lot of people. I've heard very good things about his camps in the past. Last year, he took a group of young men to Gulf Shores, Alabama, that were able to participate in the camp. So they do a lot in the city of Tuscaloosa and Northport. They have students, young men and young women from both sides of the river that participate.
Mr. Holmes, have we been through this one? Not we as in you.
This came to my office again. It has been a few weeks. Typically, if it's not somebody that we focus, somebody we all know, as it comes through, as it comes off committee, as A&F and OCA work on it, we reach out to the council person to make sure we have their 501c3 paperwork, those sorts of things.
Do we have that?
That's not something we've done.
Okay,
yet.
so, Ms. Howard, I'm gonna make a motion to table for 1 week so that we can catch up with that. The cause sounds wonderful, but if there's a second, I'd like to wait, will that give y'all enough time to
Yes,
get
sir,
what
should.
you need?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to table for 1 week. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, item is tabled for 1 week. Number 3, general budget revision number 17, Ms. Standridge.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, council. This budget revision is actually corresponding to Ms. Howard's request for her district improvement fund disbursement. The amount that Ms. Howard is asking to disperse for $2,500 would eat into her prior year balance that she has escrowed. And so we would need to break that out of a prior year save up and be able to activate it within the fiscal year 24. So the budget revision that we are requesting would do that. If you want to table this along with her request, we can do that as well.
But can you go back to the previous slide? Okay, so is that my remaining balance?
So if you'll, so this, the way that you'll read these tables is that prior year, so per city code. Sorry, I'm gonna just into the microphone because it's somewhat important. Per city code, district improvement funds are funded $10,000 a year. That is written within code. Also within the city code creating these district improvement funds is that any unspent balance in prior years will save up and escrow. The way that they escrow is within a designated fund balance amount, so they will be set aside for you. Then the current year funded amount within the general fund that was voted on by ordinance by the city council will be the first activated amount for you to use. That is the $15,000 that you see on that second line. So prior year save up, the prior year unspent balance totaling up is the first line. The current year amount for 2024 budgeted is $15,000. Within the current year, you have spent $17,000. So you've overspent from the current year, but like general fund budgeted amount. So we're going to need to eat into your prior year fund balance.
Okay, gotcha.
So that what's been voted on by council to be able to use right now is $15,000. So to be able to activate prior year, we need a budget revision to do that.
Okay.
All right. Since we have tabled the item that would cause the budget revision, I will also ask to table the budget revision for 1 week.
And then you will email this to us, right? And thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am, sure can.
Motion. Table.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Item is tabled till next week. Number 4, capital projects budget discussion. So there's several things I want to do today. One is we've got some portions of the capital projects budget proposal that we've heard, and I think we're ready to vote forward. I'd like to go ahead and do that today. Second of all, I've got a couple of other pieces coming towards us, one out of Mr. Thompson's CFG and one out of Tuscaloosa Police Department's firing range. I'd like to get the presentation on those as we move through. So I've handed out to each of you, and I think we printed 10 copies, so they're circled around the table. But part of what we've got coming up that we were briefed on 2 weeks ago at Finance Committee involves some changes that we need to make to the FY24 projects. And then there are 2 reimbursement resolutions involving the FY25 bond projects, number 1 and number 2, the reimbursement resolution for Sabin Center funding to be expended and then reimbursed later through the FY26 bond issue. The reimbursement resolutions are being prepared now by the bond attorney. We expect to see that between Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, and I would anticipate us reviewing that following that. But for today, if the committee members will take a look at the top portion of the capital proposal discussion that Ms. Standridge provided us last week for Elevate, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 changes that would needed to be voted forward in order to enact what was proposed. The first one of those is the University Boulevard Corridor Project, adding $1 million to that. The Gateway Focus Project, adding $1.5 million to that. Bowers Park Pickleball, we'd add $1 million to that, and Springbrook Park, $1.5 million to that. On the decrease side, we would take back $250,000 from Skyline Boulevard streetscaping, $250,000 from the Northern Riverwalk Phase 2, which would be pushed to FY25 for contract timing, and then the TCL matches we would decrease by $600,000 and move that forward to FY 2025. Are there any items of discussion or questions on those items? And is there a motion to vote?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those items which I read off, and
I got a question on one of those items. Skyland Boulevard Streetscape, what part? Is it the front in Raven District, or is it the new proposed Skyland Boulevard Streetscape?
Mayor, do you want to address that?
They're decreasing it by
Decrease by
200.
250.
Oh, that's just a timing issue of funding.
Okay.
That's a move into the next fiscal year.
Even though it's moving into 25.
The total overall project's not.
All the decreases were movements forward.
That's fine,
It's
that's
still
fine.
there.
Oh, no, that's fine. I get it.
No, we're all in.
Okay.
We're on the Lanier Skyline Boulevard train.
Yeah, we could.
First trip we made.
All right, so let's, having gotten that out of the way, and Vicki, I've got if you need for the minutes, those items, we've got them here.
And if it's amenable, we will be bringing the budget revision for this in the regular format for next week's city council meeting directly to council.
That's fine. Mr. Thompson, the two other things we wanted to talk about today and use some of our time was, number one, the roughly 2.3 million you've got for facilities enhancements around here. And I told Ms. Standridge in our conference on Thursday, I want to have the financial vision presented now, because Mr. Tyner, there's some internal council discussions that are gonna be generated by this that need to be resolved before we make decisions on the financial part. And, you know, the biggest one of those involves the relocation of council meetings out of the current council chambers and whether or not to upgrade acoustics, lighting, etc. And then following that, we've got Officer Guy from Tuscaloosa Police Department. We'll make a presentation on what we can do to step up the facilities out there at the Tuscaloosa Range. Mr. Thompson?
So, do you want me to start and focus solely on the courtroom B? I've also got several other things in that 2.258 that we can.
Take it in whatever order you'd like.
All right, so we'll start out at the TDOT campus. Going through there over this past year, I don't know that much has been done to upgrade anything at this. It's one of the areas that you and I walked several months ago. So if you look at the yellow building near the top, that's the TDOT main building. First, we're looking at renovating the offices. We're not talking about anything extravagant. We're talking about paint, a couple finishes, just trying to get it up, out of 1980. So we're looking at potentially 30,000 on the main office HVAC, which is still running off the R22 refrigerant. 20,000 for the second floor south end of the building, and this is going to have to be done in phases so that we don't disrupt every single office in that building at once. So we would look at the south end of the main building first, then move to the north end, and then finally we would go through and do the first floor. The majority of the offices are on the second floor. And so in the very end, we would look at, if you see the TDOT South Gate entrance, we would look at automating that. There's already a gate there, but right now they're manually having to open and close it. Due to some security issues, we'd like to go ahead and put an operator on that. We're going to reuse one that we already have on hand, and we would be doing that primarily with city staff. So total for all those projects I just listed is $140,000.
All right. Any questions on that? Okay.
All right, moving on. This is the one that you were that you mentioned in the beginning, Councilor Busby.
Yeah.
So we have certain city hall improvements. We'll start out with the courtroom B. This is over in Annex 2 on the first floor. This is where MSU is currently set up. It has been an underutilized space, so we have been working with Ward Scott Morris to see what it would look like to move that over there. Now, this is something that my predecessor started, and so I believe this was in the budget last year, but I am just now getting acquainted with it. And so we would move council chambers into this room. This is currently not being fully utilized. Several things could help here in that it would create a one-stop or a front door, if you will, for people to enter City Hall, as well as we could have the not only City Council in this room after reworking the dais, but we'd also look at having all of the committee meetings such as this one over there. As we do that, we would look at renovating this space that we're currently in and moving IT down into this space and moving the council offices to the south end of Annex 1.
And what's the price tag associated with that, do you think?
So to renovate the
Or
space,
what's the budget amount associated?
so to renovate the space on the screen, you're looking at roughly $700,000. And then to do the office move, you're looking at $750,000. So just shy.
$1.5 million.
Yes, sir.
So you're talking about the council offices would be on this floor. down
Correct.
Basically where IT is though. now.
Correct. We'd be flip-flopping IT in the council offices.
So what would be the current council room down there?
We're still looking at what that's going to turn into. It could be a flex space. It could be used for several different things.
So, in some of our discussions, and some members of the council are in favor of that. I think some are in favor of staying. If it stays, the acoustics and the lighting of that room are going to have to be
Absolutely. So with
revised.
the biggest issue you deal with in that is, the height of the ceiling. There are some things you can do to, lower the height or lower the acoustic barrier without having to actually physically lower the ceiling. But when you do that, you're looking at having to lower all of the lighting as well, and that's where you start incurring a lot of costs.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't wanna move from here. I'm just one person, but before, when the mayor and I were on the council together, it was long ways.
Correct.
We didn't have any problems with acoustics. And when all the change was done, that's when we started having some issues.
Where did it used to be?
Well,
In front of the windows or across from the window?
Crossing the windows.
Across from the window.
It's just something that's just so historic to me about the ambiance of looking like it's a real council meeting. This looks like a courtroom.
Kip, I understand. I guess one reason I'm for it is just to help access. And I know it's tough for handicapped people to get into this building sometimes. And I just really like the fact that anybody can walk in the front door and they're not wandering around the building. I know our security is better, but that's just something I think about.
I understand.
Uh,
And, it just looks more like a council.
I
To
understand.
me, this is just looks like, and we went down there at one time and had our meetings, and I know there'd be changes. It just was, it just didn't feel.
So I think we need to identify what the right forum is. I mean, I don't see finance committee as the forum for making that decision internal to the council. I don't know whether it's admin and I just don't think that's not a finance decision. I just wanted the prompting by the financial criteria involved to prod us that it's the council's desire, not the finances, that are the long pole in that tent.
And I also say, I like the giving IT more than they need it, and I'm not against moving our council down that way. It's
So
just moving it
what
out of the
what
council
forum do
chamber.
you think would do you want to?
I don't know, just something that we all need.
Certainly, you can do some informal canvassing to
Sure.
decide what kind of level of vote it's going to take.
Yeah, absolutely, I'll be happy, we'll do that.
Chair, I would like to ask, since
Yeah.
we're here, like, what would the format or the setup look like if we did move there?
So we would have to remove the bench. And Counselor, I know that you mentioned having to move council chambers down there several years ago. That was the courtroom A. And while it would be a similar setup, that the bench, the way it's configured right now, is not very conducive to council meetings. I think it's great for what the judge is doing and how court is run.
Sure.
But, this entire bench would be dismantled, and then we would have one specifically built for this council that would, that would fit your needs. So it doesn't have one person above the others, but the other one's kind of on the perimeter. It would have, it would have.
And I realized it was temporary then too, but, I think I'll certainly will meet with each council person and get their thoughts about.
And I can
this
take
too.
everyone on a tour, you want to call my office.
Well,
I'd be happy to set
I
it up
think
and
what
show you.
would need to be a part of that decision is, I think you're going to have to start gathering together at least some rough order of magnitude of what cost and disruption would be required if we keep that. I mean, we're talking 1.5-ish if we move, check.
Correct.
So to put that in context of decision-making, there's going to have to be some notion of what would have to be done and a rough order of magnitude of what would be involved financially.
And, I've had discussion with the mayor before, about I think that, there are, and I'm the one who's complaining sometimes about the sound that people get, but
Oh, I can't hear.
I think one of the things.
Well, you can't hear anyway.
Oh, come on.
Is that
You set that up.
there was some changes made that some people were in charge of that didn't have the expertise. I'll just be honest with you about lighting or about sound. But they just did it on their own. I mean, not on their own, of course, but there were some that just didn't really I know some people that, you know, that at the University of Alabama, for example, who are great in sound and lighting, and that's who we should have consulted. I feel like before the move was made, I didn't say that till afterwards because I was just going to see if it worked out. But I'd like to just, like you said, just not a decision be made today, but I'd like to talk with everyone and get everybody's thoughts. That's just mine.
My only thoughts are that I just wish the community had more access. Anytime we have visitors, there's always questions about where do they park, how do they get in? And then it's not as easily accessible as it could be.
Lee wants a packed house every night.
Every night, every Tuesday. I love it. I love it for planning commission.
So we're $1.5 million-ish on that portion. Would you say 140-ish on the?
So there's two more components
Okay.
to the City Hall campus. One is the intermodal facility signs, something that I believe these need to be upgraded. No one is going to understand exactly what an intermodal facility
Oh, I
is,
agree
but
with
have
that.
something out there that's more welcoming. The number of events that we have at Government Plaza, where the parking needs to be accessed, and then I've talked to a lot of people that think this is a government building that is off limits to the public. It's the furthest thing from the truth. And so upgrading these signs, and then the lights at the front of City Hall, when they are installed, we use theater lighting. We'd like to upgrade that to something that's appropriate for the RGB design that we're looking at.
So we're gonna scratch out intermodal and put public parking?
It's going to say welcome to Tuscaloosa.
How much is it gonna cost?
Right now, we've got it for $60,000, but that's more than just this sign. We're looking at all four sides of the intermodal facility.
Gentlemen, any questions or comments on that?
That's a pretty building.
Mr. Chair, going back to the council room discussion, is the current place of our city council meetings where we currently meet, how historical is it, and could there possibly be upgrades to meet the needs of those who have disabilities?
So in which way? So obviously there are upgrades we can make to that space. I believe one of the main items that's driving the move is assessing our security. But also, if you look at some of the facilities, around Birmingham, Hoover, they have something that's more on this scale than with the 20 to 30 foot ceilings. So that was also one of the reasons for looking at this.
Gotcha.
And again, I know I have a little problem from hearing, but if you sit on the other side from where we are, I was at a zoning meeting with Kip recently. We couldn't hear anything that was said. And I feel for the people that come in here and really want to hear something.
Well, and for one, and this council's guilty of it too, got to speak in the microphone. That's what they're for. You can't talk here and the microphone's over here, and I see a lot of councilmen do that. And that's what happens to ZBA too. I got to speak in, like Mr. Busby, carry it with you if you have
Yeah,
to.
there you go.
You need to speak in the microphone.
All right, so moving on, we've got some upgrades to some of the grounds around Tuscaloosa. This is the Riverwalk Bridge over by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. The bridge looked amazing when it was installed. Over the years, if you're dealing with pressure-treated lumber, you're going to run into issues with upkeep. And so we're looking at replacing this with something that you see more along the lines of what we're doing at the other Riverwalks, which would be a metal handrail, the length of this.
There's a lot of snakes on both sides of there, buddy. I saw moccasins the other day.
Are you against snakes?
I don't like moccasins.
We are out there daily. And so also we're looking at trying to fix some of the tree gates. Now, if you remember when Mr. Leopard from the university was here, this was one of the things we did on the strip to help improve safety. These are tripping hazards, which we're going to go through, do these in-house. But we're also looking at the shrubs that need to be removed out of Government Plaza and around City Hall. Just minor upkeep that hasn't been happening for a few years. We're looking at trying to bring that back up to meet our standard.
And what size package do you think that is?
So we've got the landscaping, which is what we're thinking around $100,000. The bridge is going to be $84,000, and then $75,000 to redo the tree grates. Now we're going to do the majority of this in-house, but some of them will need to be replaced through.
Landscaping all over your house.
Yes, sir.
That's all right.
$84,000 to get across that little creek.
So we're keeping
Never mind. That's,
the concrete is just the handrails.
bridges are not cheap, are they?
Is that protected from moccasins?
Use ropes.
That's
And then
I'm
finally-
sorry. That was.
If you
Go
fall
ahead.
off that wood,
And then finally, we've got $250,000 we're requesting for HVAC upgrades across the city. We have multiple units that still run off a refrigerant that's not being manufactured anymore. And instead of trying to put Band-Aids on them, which we know they're going to have to be replaced, go ahead and replacing some of those.
Okay.
And we are doing the majority of those in-house now as well.
All right. Gentlemen, any questions or
Chairman,
comments?
Can I ask a
Yeah,
quick
sure.
question? Carla, remind me of this, I think I'm thinking about this right, but when we had discussions last year about these elevators, for example, I remember that we were real concerned about what the cost was gonna be of those elevators. And I know that it came in a good chunk under what we thought. If there's money left over in surplus money, that just continues to roll. Is
Yes,
that-
sir. So
Technically correct?
that's technically correct. So especially specifically for those elevators, that was transferred into basically a capital project fund. The general fund facility renewal, you'll kind of hear that every once in a while when they'll do minor public works projects for it. And so that money just stays there.
And it could be used to offset another project.
Yes,
Right,
sir.
right, because I know, but I'm right on it that those elevators came in. It was a pretty good chunk under, I think, what we put in there.
250,000.
Yeah, just, I mean, it's,
So, well, that one specifically, the reason that we have not already started on the courtroom B is we're having to do an HVAC swap out at Annex 2. That was something we discovered.
but I guess my
hasn't-
thought was if there was 250,000 for that, that's something you could use for,
Correct.
right?
And we,
Something like what you're talking about,
and so we're using the majority of that for
that we
the
didn't use.
HVAC replacement at Annex 2.
Okay. But it still is a capital project we use it for.
Yes, sir.
are we getting the new elevators?
Yes. Tim Sullivan is in discussion with them about when the materials are going to be delivered so they can start.
Thanks, Paul.
I don't want to stay.
Upstairs.
Any other questions
We'll
or
get-
comments on this portion of it?
No, sir.
Okay.
So,
Eric, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
will we make a decision on the approval or adjustments to this after Mr. Tyner has these meetings with us about the
I
other?
think let's get an indicator from him.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean,
It looks like we're going or
a
staying.
couple of weeks.
And then we can
maybe,
push that
2 weeks.
We ought to have a vote.
And if we need to take that piece out, we can,
And vote on everything
or
else.
we can package it all
I
together.
like everything.
I think we know what we're doing.
Didn't we need to see, hear from Sergeant Guy?
Yeah.
Well, I just noticed that she was ending the meeting.
Who's ending the meeting?
No, nobody.
It just flashed on. It just flashed on.
I agree. She put up next week's
Thank
signs,
you.
what she did.
Okay.
And he's messing. with
Chief,
you, thinking you can't hear.
You wanna
I'm
introduce your,
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was bad.
That was real bad.
That was bad.
You get over
Good
it.
afternoon, council.
Good
afternoon.
Chief.
One thing we had is that we were looking at the target turn system. I think it was slated for around $100,000. We're very lucky to have Sergeant Guy, who is our range master. He took a look at that and decided, hey, what's the best way that we can use that money to update our range? So I'm going to let him come up here and give a presentation. Please ask him any questions. He's amazing at what he does, and he's the best around. Sergeant Guy.
sure, come on up, Sergeant Guy. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Steve.
Good afternoon.
Mayor, how y'all doing?
I didn't recognize y'all dressed.
Doesn't he clean up
Every
well?
once in a while, the chief will ask me to put a uniform or a suit on, so I went suit. I don't think we have this for the board, so. So as Chief said, as y'all know, in the past, we've talked about some upgrades we could do to the range. We talked about a turn and target system. We've talked about classroom space. We've talked about a few other things. So looking at is where can we spend dollars that would give us the biggest bang for our buck as far as training goes? That's my primary concern, is that getting our guys trained and getting them trained well. So when I'm looking at facilities, a turn and target system is nice. The last pricing I got on a turn and target system was just after COVID. It was around $160,000. A base system at that time was around $90,000. So what that would do for us is face a target and edge a target. So when we're talking about training value, very little training value. So the proposal you have in front of you is for, just to reorient you with the range of all been out the range. Y'all saw primarily the big range. To the southeast is a smaller range. The big range is 16 firing lanes, and we can shoot out to 100 yards on that range. The smaller range is 16 points, and we can actually shoot out a little bit further on that range. The smaller range is partially concrete now. There's concrete up at the target line, at the 7-yard line, the 15-yard line, the 25-yard line. So the proposal is to fill in the concrete, to completely concrete that range. The range has a drainage problem down there. So rather than trying to work the drainage problem with a lot of earth moving and French drains, we could put a concrete pad that pretty much solve the drainage issue that we're having out there. And the other proposal is to cover it. Covering that range would allow us to, right now, if we certainly shoot in the rain, we don't shoot in the lightning storms. So that will allow us to shoot in inclement weather. A day like today, I've been out in the range the past 2 days with the academy. It is a scorcher outside. So you get someone out in the range for 8 hours, 10 hours a day. By the end of the day, they're just beat. So being able to have the ability to shoot in the shade. And you see there we'll have lighting under that pole barn style covering, as well as fans, to be able to turn those fans on, to be able to have lighting underneath there, give our guys some relief out on the range would be a huge benefit to us. The other benefit as well with the concrete, easy cleanup, it's easy maintenance. We can move vehicles underneath there and do vehicle work. With the SWAT team, we can pull the MRAP underneath there. We can set structures up there and do interior structure work and things like that. So that's the proposal that we have as far as the covered range goes. Also, there's some classroom things in there. Upgrade the audio visual in the classroom. The TVs that we have in there actually came out of evidence. Probably sometime in the early 2000s. So they need to be upgraded.
Chief, y'all can't find anybody that needs a flat screen seized?
We host a lot of outside agencies at the range. We host a lot of outside classes, third-party trainers at the range. In the past 7 years, we're known for the classes that we host there. I get phone calls, emails on a daily basis of, hey, what do y'all have coming up? What do y'all have coming up? What do you have coming up? So we're known for our training that goes on there. Not just the training that we do as far as in-house TPD, but the training that we do outside of TPD that other agencies come from. And we have them come from all over the country to our range to train. So we're very fortunate to have the facility that we have. So the classroom, we talked about building a new classroom. I know there's some issues there as far as bringing up the actual grade out there. Quite frankly, $100,000 wouldn't get us very far where the classroom goes. But some AV, some audio visual updates would be huge. Also, what you have in there is the Polaris Ranger that we have at the range. It's a 02 model, and it's on its last leg, something we rely on every day to run out there. So we'll put that in there as well. What questions do you have?
Gentlemen, any questions, comments? I'll make a comment. I'm probably the one most quick to bounce out of my seat complaining about gee whiz, newfangled doodad stuff. I'm telling you, the TPD shooting range is old school.
It hadn't changed since 1972 when I first went out.
Built in 72, and there's as far as I know, there's no infrastructure investment's been.
It is old school, but it is effective. It is well run out there, and I think their work shows it. So
As far as police ranges go, we're very fortunate to have that property out there.
I think you're making a wise decision not to go for the newest, fanciest electronic stuff around, so that it's not broken in 6 months and waiting another 6 for repair. And the basic changes you're talking, improvements, I think make a lot of sense.
along those lines for basic, having the conversation with the company, one of the companies I spoke to this morning, in the event the range is relocated, that pole barn, it could be moved. It could be set up at another location.
We want to pass something on this today, or we just?
Let's, I'd rather talk it over, but it's gonna pass. Let's.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks for coming in, Tim.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Is there any other business to be brought before the finance committee?
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chair.
All in favor say aye. Aye.